What's up, everybody? Dr. Ray, and we are talking about how to find a good Master's of Instructional Design program or certificate, or other name like Ed Tech, Instructional Tech, Learning Sciences, Learning Engineering, Learning Experience Design, any of those different names people like to call our field. I'm talking about how to find a good program. I did a similar video in 2019. Lots has changed since then, mostly due to the pandemic. I've talked to a number of, I have a consulting firm. I've talked to a number of different hiring managers in the last 6 months about changes that have happened post-pandemic in the field. And I do that because I used to lead a master's program, and I spent 5 years building it up. So I have to know what's happening in the field because I'm still teaching in that program. And what I want to do, my goal when I was leading that program was to make it the #1 program in the nation for people going into corporate or higher ed or government contracting. But there are other focuses in our field, and not all grad programs are created equal. I read on forums like LinkedIn, Reddit, or Facebook, someone's like, I went through a grad program and I didn't learn any e-learning software. And it's like, but you picked a research program, which is why. Their program does research really well. You just didn't pick a program for you. So you really have to do your research. So I'm updating my video from 2019 today. There are different things in here that I'm going to talk about. And so it's not the same video. There's some new information. All right. So hopefully after the video, you've learned a little bit about what you should be looking for when researching graduate programs in instructional design. I'm not talking about why you should get the master's. If you want to know that, I have other videos for that. Go watch them. Today, we're talking about how to choose your program. All right. First thing, you need to know what you want to do after this program. For example, is your goal K-12? And research, like K-12 and or research, or is your goal like corporate, government consulting, or higher ed? I kind of look at it in 2 to 3 categories. Like K-12, you have this corporate, government, higher ed, healthcare category, and then you have a research-based category. And then really programs are geared towards one of those things. Some programs try to do it all, but realistically, you're kind of doing one of them. All right, so you need to find out where the program's geared towards. You can find that out through a number of ways, which I'm going to go through. You can ask a professor, but sometimes it's not always clear. Sometimes they just say, oh yeah, our students do all of those, or we're kind of geared towards all of it. But realistically, it doesn't always work that way. You got to do some more research. You got to dig a little deeper. All right, so the next thing to look at while you're going through, so the type of program, first thing, if you can find that out. Next thing, what is the degree? Is it a Master of Arts? Is it a Master of Education? Or is it a Master of Science? So these titles don't mean too much because sometimes schools only offer a Master of Arts. So when you created the program, that's what you had to choose. But sometimes it does mean something. So in general, Master of Arts or Master of Education are going to be geared more towards K-12 and or research. Whereas a Master of Science is going to be geared more towards people going into that practitioner space, like the corporate government stuff. But those aren't necessarily laws or rules. They're just something that I be mindful of and see that. So, generally when you see Master of Science in Instructional Technology, you're going to know that that's probably a practitioner-based program. When you see Master of Education, it's probably more K-12 and research focused. So just pay attention to that, but those aren't rules. It could not work out that way, but it's you're getting this sense of what this program is like. All right, next thing. Big, huge thing here. Who are the faculty teaching in the program? Can you find out their names? So you need to see who are the professors. Check their work experience and resume. Does it align with what you're doing? For example, if someone is looking at the program I teach in, they find my profile, they're going to say, wow, that guy he used to be a government contractor, he owns a consulting firm and works for all these companies. And that's what I want to do. So that would probably be a good program for me. But if you look at the resume and you see this professor focuses on whatever it is, maybe that's not for you. If someone was like, you know what, I want to be the best researcher in instructional design, and they found my resume, they'd find that I do have 28 publications and stuff like that. I do presentations and all that stuff, but my focus is not research. So they probably want to go to a program that's focused on research where someone leading it is focused on research. So find out who those faculty are and are they going to get me from point A to point B? Check the faculty's LinkedIn and Twitter. Are they active, and are the things they post on there aligned with what you want to do? So that's another big thing. Like that's a big thing, because being like having that LinkedIn like the faculty need to be able to teach you how to have that social media presence. So do they have some kind, maybe they don't use LinkedIn, maybe they use whatever, but make sure they're somewhere. Like, what are they doing somewhere? And are there full-time faculty in the program, or is just a bunch of adjunct professors? Because there's got to be some kind of full-time faculty, right, leading you through, who are like dedicated to building this program and making it good. And my last piece of advice about faculty is talk to a professor. Ask to talk to a professor, whether that's the person in charge of the program or one of the other faculty. You get a good sense of a program by talking to a professor. Have a nice list of questions for them when you do. All right, and to add on to the faculty part is mentorship in the program. Make sure there's some kind of mentorship. Like, is there help when you're graduating or soon to graduate, or whatever you start? Is there a class or in classes or some kind of mentorship to help you with your resume? Like, who's helping with your resume? Who's getting your LinkedIn profile or social media profiles ready for the job market? Is there someone or something helping you with that? Because that's a big part of getting hired now. Making sure your resume really focuses on like things like keywords and stuff like that. So make sure that there's some kind of mentor helping you through that, and someone that's actually doing it and knows what they're doing too. Okay. Make sure that there is a website that you can actually check to find all this information. What does the website look like? Is it comprehensive, or does it just have like a couple paragraphs and that's it, and you can't find any more info? That's a little more concerning. It just means you need to dig a little deeper and send some emails. But like, hopefully everything's on the website, like the course list, descriptions of the courses, who the faculty are, what's going on in that program, what it's about. Comprehensive. Find the website and find out everything you can out about the program. All right, next thing. Is there an alumni group? An alumni group is huge. Let me tell you why. Like, my program was started in the early 90s. We have alumni going back over 30 years almost. So there's a crazy amount of alumni out there. Why is that important? That there's a strong alumni base and a group where they're all connected. Why is that important? Because those alumni come back and post jobs that aren't posted anywhere else to my alumni group. Or they post a job that is posted other places, but they're like, look, I'm hiring for this. So any of you that send me your resume, you're at least getting an interview. I'm going to get you all an interview. So I'll get you the interview. Like, they'll get your foot in the door. They're not giving you a job, but they're going to give you that interview. So there's a huge, and also just being able to ask them questions and stuff is huge. So that alumni group, big deal. All right, next thing. Find out where the students are working who are graduating from this program. Like, where do they work? Do they work regionally? Or who are the students in the program? Like, is it just a bunch of people who just graduated from undergrad, or are these working professionals coming back? Is it teachers working? Like, who is in the program and what are they actually trying to do? Because you want people who are like aligned with kind of what you're doing. For example, like my program that I teach in is a lot of people returning from the workforce who are looking to get into instructional design from other fields. And we help place them in those fields. So like in the field. So it's like, who are the people coming in and what are they doing? Are they going full-time, part-time? All that kind of stuff is pretty important, because you kind of go through with, like, even though we don't have a cohort, it's very cohort based, where you get to know the students you're going to school with. So you want people in the same situation as you, so you guys can help each other throughout your entire career. All right. Next point. Is there work experience in the program? Like, are you working with clients in the program at some point? Whether that's internships, capstone projects, or clients in classes. Because when you graduate, you need experience to get a job. Now, your classes will count, but you need some real work experience from like real companies or schools or wherever you're trying to work. So what kind of work experience are you getting? Like, is it, and it can be all of that. It can be, you can get work experience from class projects you're working with real clients. You can have internships, and you can do a capstone project. And then on top of that, are the projects in the classes aligned with that real work experience, so that you're developing some kind of portfolio when you graduate? Because companies are going to ask you for a work sample or work samples or a portfolio of projects that you can explain. A lot of programs do have portfolios or some kind of project-based, in their classes that you're going to develop and have something to show companies. But make sure it has that and it's included. There needs to be some kind of projects, work samples that you are able to show to interviewers. Whether that's a portfolio, a website with projects, whatever it happens to be, make sure you've got something. Make sure the program's helping you develop that and giving you some coaching and tips on creating it. Not that I want them all to look the same. I love to see student work samples that look different and see their creativity in their work samples. I know hiring managers like to see that as well. They don't like to see them all look the same, but make sure there's some support for building that in the program. All right, next thing, cost. How much does the program cost? Does it meet your needs? You know, one of the rules that I tell people about like how much should college cost, college should cost, if you're taking out loans for college, it should cost what your first job's going to be, and you've made a good choice. If you're taking out like $300,000 in loans and getting a job for $30,000, that's, you know, your job is 10 times less than what your loans were. That was terrible. If you take out $300,000 in loans, your first job should pay $300,000. Now, instructional design is a little different than that. You know, starting salaries in the field right now, like are the average, like in this, like I'm seeing like this mid 70s range. You'll see some people get like 80s, 90s, maybe even in the low hundreds starting salaries. Those are a little more rare than like that 70s that I'm seeing right now. But most of our degrees cost is significantly less than that. For example, my program's only like between like $10,000 and $12,000 total. So the return on investment is huge there. So make sure you focus on the cost though, because programs can cost a lot. I highly recommend people check out their state schools and see the cost for your in-state program, how much it is and what it offers, because cost is very, very, very important when you're talking about going back to school. All right. And then the next thing is length and time of completion. Like how long does it take to get a master's? Like, does it take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? There's lots of, you know, the traditional average master's is 2 years, but there are programs that are shorter, programs that are longer. And maybe a program is 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, but can you go shorter or longer based on your specific needs? Like maybe you need to extend it out to be 3 or 4 years, or maybe you need it to be like a year and a half or a year. Can you do that? So ask the professors, how long does it take me to go through? How long can it take me to go through? All right, next thing. Make sure you see or ask for a course list, because depending on what you're trying to do, you need to know that the courses are actually focused on that. For example, and I use corporate as the example, if you're going into corporate instructional design, you need several courses on technology and tools, and you need several courses on theory, because you need to know both. If your focus is research, you're going to need less tools, and you're going to need more on that theory, and then probably some stats stuff, statistics-based classes. So depending on your goals, make sure the courses focus on that. Like if your goal is to go into corporate and you go to a program that teaches you no tech, where are you left off with? You're left off with having to teach yourself all the technology. Now, you know, the thing about the technology is you have to remember it keeps changing. Whereas like the theories I learned when I went through my master's in 2001, 2, and 3 have not changed. The technology that I learned from my master's, not even existent anymore. So you've got to have some theory, because it doesn't change, it's good, but you also need some tech, because when you graduate, you need to be like, yeah, I can use this. Like right now, like, yeah, I can use Articulate Storyline, Articulate Rise, Beyond, Captivate. Like, can you use that stuff? Yeah, okay, good. You're going to be set. You're going to have some nice projects for a portfolio. You're going to be able to talk through them and talk through the theory and boom, get a job. And finally, the last piece of advice for you then is make sure the program provides access to these tools they're teaching. So like, you know, students coming in a program should have access to Captivate, Articulate, and whatever they decide to use, Camtasia, Beyond. But they don't necessarily have to buy all of them themselves. Like students coming into my program right now have access to Articulate, all the Adobe suite, including Captivate, you know, Photoshop, Dreamweaver, Illustrator, all that good stuff, Premiere, Audition. And then we are getting them access to Beyond starting next year. But like, you need to have access to that stuff, or you're just downloading like a 30-day trial and boom, that's it. But like, so you're paying, so hopefully you're getting something out of that payment. So in addition to getting the degree, like you're able to use like Articulate and Captivate, learn how to use it and have access to it, be able to create some cool projects with it. So that's my list. Depending on what you want to do is where your focus is going to be. And that's very different. My focus, in my brain, my focus for IDs is always like this corporate government contracting based, alignment. Like that's where I see people going because that's my background and what I focused on. But there are people not focusing on that. So find the program that fits your needs, fits exactly what you're looking for. All right. I hope you learned anything, learned something at least, a little bit from this video. It's definitely a little different than my 2019 video. Go back and watch that and see like how this one has changed, kind of what I've added to it, because I really just added a few things to it. And, make sure if there's anything else, be sure to add that in the comments. But, as things change, I'll keep updating this video, redoing it as needed. But if you're looking for a master's or certificate in instructional design, do your research. Programs are not all the same. Make sure it meets all of your needs. All right, later all.